All right, let's dive right in. We're going to tackle a pretty wild idea today, one that comes from ZT Tosha. It's this amazing blend of quantum physics, philosophy, and art, and honestly, it might just change how you see, well, everything. So let's get into it.
Okay, so it all starts with this really simple question. Just look around you for a second. What do you, right now, have in common with, say, the table in front of you, or a tree outside, or the sun? I mean, the immediate answer is nothing, right? They're just objects, and you're you. But what if that's not the full story? What if there's this deep, hidden connection we're just not seeing?
Well, the first, most obvious answer is pretty philosophical. We all exist. But here's the kicker. According to ZT Tosha, that's not just some nice, poetic thought. It's a hard, scientific reality, something that's literally woven into the fabric of the universe itself.
So, okay, let's pull on that thread. We're going to move past the poetry and the metaphors and really dig into the physical laws that connect everything. I'm talking about you, me, and the most distant stars in the cosmos. Our first clue? It comes from the super weird world of quantum mechanics. You've probably heard of this thing called quantum entanglement. It's strange. Imagine you have two tiny particles that are linked, like cosmically linked. If you measure a property of one of them, let's say its spin, you instantly know the spin of the other one. Instantly. It doesn't matter if it's a millimeter away or on the other side of the galaxy. It's like they're not two things at all, but one single system that's just stretched out across space.
And that right there, that's the core of this whole thing. This isn't just about a couple of tiny particles. Think bigger. The atoms that make up your body, the wood in that table, the hydrogen gas burning in the sun, it all came from the exact same primordial quantum field at the beginning of time. So we're not actually separate things. We're just different expressions, different waves rippling through the same cosmic ocean. Okay, that's a huge idea. But it brings up a new question, right? If we're all made of the same stuff, why are we so different? How can one single field create all this incredible diversity we see around us? The answer, it turns out, is a kind of universal language, a set of rules that governs everything. And that language is symmetry.
Now, when we say symmetry, you're probably thinking of mirror images, right? Like a butterfly's wings. But in physics, it's a much deeper concept. It's about a quality of a system that stays the same, that remains unchanged, even when something else changes. It's this principle of deep consistency that is the absolute bedrock for the fundamental laws of nature.
And this leads us to one of the most beautiful and profound ideas in all of physics, Noether's theorem. It's incredible. What it basically says is that for every kind of symmetry you find in nature, there's a corresponding law of conservation. Let me break that down. The laws of physics work the same today as they did 1 billion years ago, right? That's time symmetry. And because of that, we get the law of conservation of energy. The laws are also the same everywhere in space. That's spatial symmetry. And guess what? That gives us the conservation of momentum. Even something as fundamental as the conservation of electric charge comes from a more abstract symmetry. So you see, symmetry isn't just about things looking pretty. It's the reason our universe is stable and predictable. So once you grasp that, it completely changes how you look at what we think of as opposites. You know, things like light and shadow, or sound and silence, or even life and death. We tend to see them as fighting each other, right? As being in conflict. But through this lens of symmetry, you realize they're not enemies. They're partners. They're part of a cosmic dance. One literally can't exist without the other. They define each other. They're really just two faces of one single unfolding reality.
Okay, so we've been way out in the cosmos. Let's bring this all the way back down to Earth, right into our own heads, because these universal patterns of symmetry, they aren't just out there in space. They're in here, right now, shaping our thoughts, our feelings, our entire experience of consciousness.
And this is where it gets really personal. The idea is that human life itself is, well, it's the experiment of symmetry made flesh. Think about your own inner conflicts, that push and pull between love and fear, between logic and intuition. We usually see those as flaws, right? Things to be fixed. But what if they're not? What if they're just echoes of that same cosmic dance? What if every challenge, every single relationship is just a mirror showing us a part of ourselves we haven't acknowledged yet? But here's the catch. There's a paradox here. Even when we kind of get this idea of unity, our minds love patterns. We are creatures of habit, of stories. We'll fight to escape one old way of thinking, one dogma, only to immediately jump into a new one. And we mistake that new pattern for real freedom.
But according to Tosha, true clarity doesn't come from finding the one right pattern. It comes from the friction, the healthy tension between lots of different viewpoints.
And that idea, that tension, brings us to something really concrete, a physical manifestation of everything we've been talking about. It's a sculpture by ZT Tosha called Christ. This piece of art is designed to make all these abstract ideas, entanglement, symmetry, consciousness, something you can actually see and feel. Every part of it, every material, tells a piece of the story. You've got this coarse, organic jute rope, which symbolizes that quantum entanglement, that sense of being bound together. Then it's colored with this ruddy iron oxide pigment, which makes you think of blood, of soil, the raw elements of being incarnated, of being physical. And the whole thing is inside a glass case, a transparent barrier that separates us, the observer, from the observed, forcing us to really look. And the details here are so important. The entire sculpture is made from one single piece of rope that's 25 meters long. Now that's not just a random number. It's a way of showing how constraint, the rope being coiled and confined, and continuity, it being one single unbroken thing, aren't opposites. They're complementary. They're partners. Just like the laws of physics we were talking about earlier.
And through this sculpture, we get this really radical reinterpretation of a famous line from the Gospel of John. You know the one. The light shines in darkness, but the darkness does not comprehend it. We almost always hear that as a story of good versus evil. But if you look at it through this lens of symmetry, the meaning completely flips. The darkness isn't some separate evil force. The darkness is the divine. It is the light, just forgetting itself for a moment. Why? So they can experience the pure joy of remembering what it is.
And that idea, that beautiful, powerful idea, brings us to our conclusion. This is where everything, the physics, the art, the consciousness, it all comes together.
So, we come all the way back to where we started. Remember that question, what do I have in common with a table, a tree, and the sun? The simple answer we started with, it's now become this incredibly deep, physical, and spiritual reality. So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. That feeling of being separate from the world around you, it's an illusion. A powerful one, but an illusion nonetheless. We are not just little observers looking out at the universe. We are the universe, waking up and observing itself. Through a table, through a bird, through your own thoughts, reality is just experiencing its own existence.
And that leaves us with this one final sublime truth. The search for meaning, for connection, for some kind of purpose, it's not a journey to some faraway destination. It's really just a journey of remembering what we've been all along. We are already what we seek.